differences in environment. Right now, we are in an environment that's very hot and humid. So a lot of our moisture levels in our tack goes way up because it's so humid here. So we really have to make sure every day that the tack isn't feeling gummy and oily. So we really make sure that the salt remover is used, that we always wipe down the tack, that nothing's ever left with a lot of gunk on it. But in the north and the northeast in the wintertime, it's cold and the moisture level is lower in your tack. Things freeze. So you have to be careful not to let it get too dried out. That's the other side of the coin of what we're dealing with in the more humid area. So everybody needs to take into consideration the moisture level of the tack. And again, you may be able to see now that Melissa has done conditioning on this section that it's a bit of a lighter, darker color than where she did it. That means that your tack is absorbing it. It's drinking up this conditioner. And for a piece like this, Melissa, maybe what I would do would let it sit another day and then do another coat of conditioner until you felt, if you bend the tack a little bit and it doesn't look like it's going to crack and it doesn't get really bright and light colored where you're bending it, then you have enough conditioner on it. Alright, so let's get rid of the surcingle. You take that down. I'm going to grab another piece of tack I found in the trailer. You'll love that. This is one of my Snapple bridles. That's a spare. I'll give that to you. And you can see that this bridle has mold or mildew on it. This does not mean this is a bad thing, other than we haven't cleaned it properly, but the moisture level in your tack, actually a healthy leather has enough moisture in it to grow mold or mildew. This has only been sitting in my trailer for about 2 weeks, sadly. It looks like about a year. But it tells me that the general moisture level of this bridle is okay because it actually has enough moisture to grow mildew. Now, mildew comes off very easily. You can take that apart. We can use salt remover. We can use a little bit of ammonia. If you're going to use ammonia, you use a capful or two in about a cup or two of water, and you use it to strip the mold. It kills the mold, but then you've also dried out your tack, just like using the salt product, so then we have to go through these steps again of conditioning and rehydrating. We're going to use the salt remover here, and we're going to get some of this off and pick a piece. Melissa, the whole thing is kind of covered. And that will also, we can talk about the use of ammonia when you get brand new tack. A lot of times when you get brand new tack, you'll see it has a gray hue to it. That's a wax that the manufacturer puts on the tack so it doesn't get scratched or scraped when they're shipping it to the retail store or for when you buy it. If you don't take that ammonia off, your conditioning and your products are not going to get into your tack, and very soon that tack will become very brittle. So we call that stripping the tack, and you would take your tack apart and you will use a little bit of ammonia or a little bit of salt remover, and you will rub it and strip it, and it'll look, if you show me your dirty spot on your thing here, the wax when it comes off will also be dark. Even though the wax looks brighter or white or gray on your tack, it'll come off looking dark. So this is, we know we're getting some of our mold off. So it's basically the same process. Mold or your wax, you can take that off in the same way. So this is coming along, and we are always going to be checking Melissa as we pulled this bridle out of this trailer this morning, that when she's taking the pieces apart and looking at them, she's also checking to make sure the stitching is good again. So we'll talk about stripping tack for like a horse show while we're doing this moldy bridle, because I think this could take Melissa a while to get all this mold off. You should always take apart your tack fairly regularly. We want to unbuckle the pieces of your reins to the bridle. The horse makes a lot of saliva. If we give them sugar or treats, that sugar or spit and saliva is very acidic to your tack. And the more you leave grungy sugar or spit or grass remnants from the horse's saliva that gets down onto the leather, the more you risk of your tack drying out and a rein breaking, and that would be really detrimental for you to be cantering around cross country or in the dressage ring or out on a hack, and you don't know it, but you're hanging on by a thread, and you will be too if your rein breaks. So you really want to be making sure you take apart the buckles, you look at the buckles, you look at the stitching of the buckles, particularly your reins, your cheek pieces, and your noseband pieces. The buckles that are up by the ears may not get as much wear and tear or gunk on them as what's down by your horse's mouth. So it's really, really important every day to check those and to take them apart. I like the girls to take the bridles apart once a month minimum to check, and they always are going to do that when they're stripping their tack down to get ready for a horse show. So here we're finishing up this piece of the cavesson, and we're going to show the difference of how that looks now. And you can see that Melissa has taken apart the piece of the crank noseband, and now she's put it back together, and how much different this looks compared to what it did before. So we've used the salt product, and now you're going to use a little conditioning cream so that we make sure we rejuvenate the moisture level again of the tack, and then we'll do our last layer of saddle soap. And then I think we'll show how the bridle should look when we're all finished and done. And while we're talking about that, I'm going to just show you all again, there's many different kinds of saddle soap. You can buy it in the spray bottle. This is the Castile saddle soap. It's got some lanolin and some coconut oil in it. You can have Murphy's oils. There are some products that make a cleaner, conditioner, pH level altogether. These are a little bit more expensive, but they're sort of a 2-for-1. You can condition and clean with some of these products together. I like to keep it simple. I like to keep as few things that I'm traveling with back and forth to the horse show as possible. So we have littler bottles, and we always try to keep what we need. Now the last piece that I'm going to show you is that they do make some of these little handy wipe type pieces, and we carry these a lot in our little tack box that we take with us to the horse show. And what these look like is basically like a handy wipe, and I'm not going to open this one, but again, I'm really thrifty, so Melissa will have something like this in our tote tray that we have out at the show ring, but I buy these at the dollar store. These are baby wipes, okay? They have lanolin, they have vitamin E, and they have a little aloe in them. This is not for cleaning tack, but this is for wiping down your tack just before you go into the arena or you're going into a clinic and you want to get that last bit of dirt off or a little bit of shine on your tack. These cost $1. These cost much more than $1 for one pack. So we are always looking for little things like this that we can use to keep our tack looking really shiny and professional. That looks wonderful. So now this is your conditioning. And now can you feel that? It feels a little greasy? All right, so the way we deal with that is we've let the conditioner, you've rubbed that in very well. Now you take a little bit of your saddle soap and you wipe off the excess. So that this is what you don't want to leave on all the time, that you build up layer and layer and layer of conditioner. That makes your tack feel very gummy and gunky. Okay, so she's going to take just a little bit of saddle soap and she's going to wipe that down until it doesn't feel quite so tacky, and it's just a nice little brush over, so you don't have to spend a lot of time doing that, just a little bit of time to get off the excess. Excellent. I'm going to grab the bridle that is finished. I'm going to talk about the finishing touches. How's that feel?
Much better.
Much better. Good. And yeah, I know you can't all feel this, but this is basically the same bridle And this one is show ready, what we call we are ready to go to the horse show. It's soft, it's malleable, there's no dirt, there's no grime. Let's hang this up here and I'll take that one down and we'll talk about the bits. Oops, sorry, that's okay. And so this one has already had the salt removed, it's been conditioned, and you've been over it with the saddle soap to take off the extra. It feels great in my hands, it's not slimy, it's not sticky, it's very soft. She's gotten this bit ready, the whole bridle is ready for the horse show. You can see it is gleaming. There is nothing prettier, in my opinion, when you turn your horse out for a horse show or a clinic to have all of the pieces of your bridle polished. And we have a couple different kinds of polish, and we can show these. This is a paste, and this is the old Never Dull, which I can't open, you'll have to do. This comes out in a wad of cotton. This works with a little bit of paste that you put directly on the bit, and the bit, never the bit of the mouthpiece, but only the rings. So we would put a little bit on our fingers, we would rub it in around, and it's obviously going to be easier when you are stripping your tack for the horse show and you've taken your bridle off the bit. And we let that sit for a moment, and then you need to use some sort of cotton or dry towel. So this one's not going to work for that, but this one will. So you let this sit, and then it's a little bit of elbow grease. And you allow your fingers to come around the tack and you rub and you push all of those pieces of leather out of the way if your bit's still attached, and you be sure, and you see I have my thumb over the bit. Never ever ever use bit polish on the mouth of the bit. The bars and the mouthpiece of the bit is what your horse is going to have in his mouth. First of all, it's toxic. Second of all, it tastes terrible. So you don't want to have your horse wanting to spit the bit out because you've left some kind of product on that bit. And see, this one's looking even shinier as we go along. If you polish your bit correctly, you will find all of this tarnish on the towel. Okay, you can even see that maybe that looks a little bit brighter than the ring that I've already done. There we go. So I just love looking at a really, really shiny piece of equipment. And don't forget that this is not the only metal in your bridle. We have buckles, we have saddles, we have buckles on the saddles, we have stirrups. All of this should be polished just as diligently as the bit. Now we'll show us the piece of cotton so we can see another type of bit polish. It doesn't matter which one you like, they work very well, both of them. You can see this just looks like lamb's wool almost, but there's an oil in it that is your polishing utensil. So you make sure you don't get it on the bit. And now she's going to use a little elbow grease and go around and around. And once she's applied this, then you're going to rub it again with the dry piece. So Jane, is there anything else you'd like to add about getting your horse bridle ready for the horse show?
Yeah, well, I think that this looks great, but I do have a question, because in a perfect world, you'd be polishing all the metal, the rings of the bit, and you wouldn't be getting any of that stuff on the bit itself.
Right.
But sometimes you do. So we're assuming that you've taken the bridle apart and that you've got the bit separate, and you're cleaning the rings. But let's say you have gotten a little bit of some of that, whichever, the silver polish, the metal polish, or whatever on there. Do you just rinse it off with plain water? What's the best way to make sure that your horse isn't tasting that?
A little bit of soap and water,
yeah.
And then I like to clean the bars of my bits with a little bit of toothpaste or a little bit of Listerine. Yeah. These are products that go in our mouths. They're safe. Toothpaste, it has a nice flavor sometimes for the horses, and it's a good point to bring up because sometimes we will use toothpaste to actually clean some of the tartar from the bit off, and we always have a toothbrush with us. So
The same old
use
recycling.
the
We always
recycling, and I use a lot. I use Listerine for a bunch of things.
Yeah.
So Listerine is in our grooming kit.
Yeah.
I use it for rinsing off bits.
Yeah.
I use it for itchy tails.
Mm-hmm.
The horses that get really itchy tails, and it's also a really good stain remover. So if you have a gray horse and you have a little bit of Listerine, you can use a little bit of Listerine on a towel and then give it a rub, and it comes right out.
Wow.
So Listerine is a good product for something like that. But toothpaste, also people, when you take your tack home for cleaning, if it's cold in the winter, throw your bit in the dishwasher.
Oh.
Very simple, very easy. It won't polish it the way Melissa is polishing it, but it will sterilize it and it will clean it. And it's a good point to bring up that if you're buying a used bit, isn't that beautiful?
Yeah.
It's very shiny.
Yeah.
If you're going to borrow a bit or you bought a used bit, you should sterilize it first. What perfect place for bacteria to grow than on a bit.
Right.
So unless you have boiling water or Clorox, which you don't want to put your bit in Clorox, put it in the dishwasher.
Excellent. What a great point. Speaking of disinfecting, when you were getting rid of the mold and the mildew, and you had a choice of your salt remover or your, what was the other thing that you were using there? Some,
The FX.
Not the FX,
The ammonia.
Ammonia, yes. As far as killing things that are growing, do they both equally
They
kill
both.
whatever
They
do?
both. Ammonia is stronger. You
Yeah.
use less of it. You use a capful and a cup of water. It's very harsh on your hands. It does kill, but so does there's a lot of alcohol in the salt remover, so the alcohol will also kill things quite dead.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So here, I think, if any of us showed up in the ring with this bridle on and this beautiful bit and this lovely clean tack, the first impression of the judge is going to be, okay, they're very detail oriented, they've done a beautiful job, their tack is shiny, and it's not just the bridle. We want to present all of our tack that way. So I think we'll take a little break and then we'll get organized for doing the saddles and the rest of the equipment.
Awesome.
Okay, terrific.